So yeah, as I mentioned before, well, good morning again and welcome. The purpose of this annual webinar has two sides, let's say. First and foremost, we want to serve a platform to discuss and explore potential policies at EU level that we can implement both at EU level but also at local level. And that's the space that we thought would have been the most efficient one to exchange ideas, best practices, so that we can create somehow a roadmap to tackle food waste in a maybe in a more sustainable and efficient way. And the second goal is to understand what are the underlying causes to of food waste, in particular at logistic stage of the food value chain, because the Sisters Project, the Sisters Project's goals are to well, change a bit the systemic, to share systemic innovations and technologies to indeed reduce food losses and waste. And so our common approach is to identify what the reasons are and how and what we can develop effective strategies to mitigate and minimize the waste. This webinar is an opportunity to foster inter-European cooperation. So this is also a space for collaboration and networking, and we hope that we can facilitate the establishment of these partnerships among us and among other organizations working to tackle food waste. And so I would like to invite all of you to be proactive and to actively engage in this webinar. You can use the chat tool, and as you've seen in the agenda, there is a session after each panel, so you can pose your questions or share your insights, and so that you can connect and interact with the other attendees and with the speakers. And last but not least, I would like to express my gratitude to all the speakers and the panelists who have agreed to share their knowledge and to share their expertise with all of us today. So really thank you for your contributions and your time. I'm really looking forward to our discussion so that we can together pave the way towards a more effective and efficient solution to tackle food waste. And yeah, I just wish you all a fruitful webinar. So thank you once again to everyone. And now that my hosting duties are done, I would already give the floor to our first speaker, who's Cristina Lisecci from the DG Sante, the unit dealing actually with food waste. So thank you very much for being here. As you know, the Commission published their proposal in July for a revision of the Waste Framework Directive. So we would like to hear a bit more of the state of play at EU level for food waste in these very moments. So thank you, Cristina, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for your kind introduction, Federica. I hope everyone can hear me well. I'm just waiting for you to give me the right to share my screen, and we can dive right into the content.
You should have it now.
Okay. I hope you can see well.
Yes,
Yeah,
super.
okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is this bar also a part of the screen?
Yeah, it's visible.
Okay, I hope you can still see well the content. So hi everyone, very happy to be here today, this morning, and to also know a bit about this project. My name is Kristina Lisecki. I'm a policy officer in the food waste, in the area of food waste prevention, part of the Farm to Fork strategy unit, as Federica rightly mentioned. And today, I hope I'll give you an overview of what the Commission is doing at EU level in order to prevent food waste, and where we stand with the flagship proposal to set food waste reduction targets across the EU. So I hope you are familiar with the strategy. We have at EU level implemented food waste prevention actions since 2015, when we adopted the Circular Economy Action Plan. And then this was first part. We saw food waste first as part of circular economy package, and afterwards, as part of the Farm to Fork strategy, food waste was regarded as part of was considered as part of an integrated food systems approach. And there are several initiatives that have been put forward under the strategy. The first one, which proposes to set legally binding targets to reduce food waste. This proposal has been adopted in July, and I'll give you a bit more details about where we stand now later on. We're also working on the adoption of a legislative proposal to clarify and to revise EU rules concerning date marking in order to avoid food waste linked to the misunderstanding of these labels. And in addition to these legislative initiatives, we are also looking, of course, into further integrating these actions into all policy areas, but also to investigate food losses at production stage. And I don't know if there's any colleagues here from one of the EU-funded project that looks particularly into this, from FOLU. Let's see later. And also, we will continue to scale up and mobilize key players across the EU. So this is the latest data that we have on food waste levels in the EU. This was published by Eurostat just a few weeks ago for the occasion of the International Day of Awareness of Food Loss and Waste. And this shows us that in 2021, so the second year of the COVID-19 pandemic, we still have around 131 kilograms of food waste per inhabitant generated in the EU, with households standing at 54% of the total food waste, while the remaining 46% was generated upwards in the food supply chain. And here you have a breakdown of all the data that you can also find on Eurostat website, broken down by country and by sector of the food supply chain. So these data actually show little change since last year, when we gathered first set of data from 2020. So the question naturally comes, how can we achieve more progress? And here we see that despite the growing awareness and of the negative impacts and consequences of food waste, despite the political commitments that were made at EU and member state level, and all the measures up to date, food waste generation is really not decreasing as required in order to reach the global targets. So based on the first EU monitoring EU-wide monitoring of food waste levels according to the harmonized methodology that the Commission proposed in 2019. We have set a baseline, and this allows us to propose targets that we can measure against to reduce food waste across the EU. And this is the legislative proposal that we adopted, the Commission adopted in July this year. And the objectives of this proposal are to really assign clear responsibility to member states to accelerate reduction of food waste along their food supply chain and in their households, so on their national territories, and make a solid contribution towards the Sustainable Development Goal, but also to ensure that there is sufficient and consistent response by all member states to reduce food waste in line with what we call front runners in food waste prevention. So this legal proposal, maybe I can mention a few elements, important elements. One of them is that it provides for a formal review of progress made by member states by the end of 2027. So that means that by that time, we will carry out a formal review of progress made by member states. And then we can also possibly adapt the targets if evidence suggests, of course, that the EU can contribute more towards the global ambition. In the proposal, the Commission also asked countries to take action to change behaviors on food waste, but not only for consumers, also for actors across the food supply chain, because we know we cannot place everything on the shoulders of consumers. This also depends a lot on the food environment itself. Countries are also asked to identify, address inefficiencies in their food supply chain, but also to support training and skills development as well as funding. So to ensure the adequate structure so that food business operators and other actors of the food supply chain can actually take action. In the proposal, the Commission also asked countries to revise their national food waste prevention programs and to designate national competent authorities in charge of combating food waste, because we know this topic cuts across many different areas. So it's important to have everyone on the same page and collaborating towards this common goal. And this slide is just to show how we have based our targets. So basically, we had a two-step approach. First, we analyzed how the targets could look like, what the scope could be, and how they should be measured and established. And in this discussion that took place before putting forward this proposal, we also carried out an inception impact assessment, and we gathered views and then tested of stakeholders and then tested the different variants for possible targets using an economic model, which is called the magnet model. And the whole process is described in details in the impact assessment, which accompanies the legislative proposal. And finally, together with colleagues from the Joint Research Center who have been in charge of developing this model and applying it to in our case, the Commission tested the technical feasibility of reaching the different targets by 2030. So in other words, how the targets would perform by the deadline of the Sustainable Development Goal agenda. So this actually led us to the preferred option, which was the second option, which sets a target of 10% for reduction in processing and manufacturing sector, and 30% reduction at retail and consumption. So this also includes the wholesale and the service sector. Looking at option one, maybe I'll go backwards. While this was easy to achieve, it didn't really reflect the ambition of the global agenda. In terms of the third option, while this reflected better the commitments, the political commitments and the global target ambitions, it turned that it was very difficult to achieve from a feasibility point of view. So looking at the front runners in food waste prevention, member states that have already taken significant action, such as, for example, the Netherlands, we saw that achieving a 50% reduction could be very difficult from a feasibility perspective. When it comes to option 4, voluntary target of 50%, while this was very much aligned with the global target, we saw that this voluntary approach, which we have applied so far, did not really reach us to the place where we want to be and to put us on track to reach the global targets. So in the end, the option 2 was assessed as the most effective in providing a strong policy impulse for member states to take action to reduce food waste at national level while still being proportionate and feasible. So just to give you a bit of an overview of the toolbox, if we may call it that we propose for both for national authorities, but also for stakeholders across the EU. So we have already carried out significant work. Part of that are legal obligations for member states to reduce, to measure, to monitor food waste, which was the first step in this journey. Of course, the common new methodology to measure consistently, guidelines, sharing best practices to promote better understanding, use of date marking, and then, of course, all the rest, which I will mention shortly. So one of these ways to scale up action and mobilize key players is actually the EU platform on food losses and food waste, which I hope you have heard about, where we bring all actors of the food supply chain. We tried to bring everyone there at the table and to make sure that everyone is represented. And we discuss solutions and exchange, assess. We monitor also policy initiatives that are put in place by both public, private stakeholders. Then this platform came up in 2019 with some key recommendations for action, which for us was really an important milestone document, which showed us what 80 plus organizations put together believe is the way to tackle food waste across the food supply chain. So we have really specific recommendations for all actors, but also taken by stage of the food supply chain, including a set of cross-cutting recommendations, which involve multiple stage of the food supply chain, multiple actors, and they focus really on action towards the global target. And we know that it's very important to strengthen the evidence-based for food waste prevention, to understand really what works, what doesn't work, how we can ensure that the action we're taking is effective, efficient. So there we worked on together with Joint Research Center colleagues, we worked on developing a framework to assess actions according to their impact, social, economic, and environmental. And last but not least, these actions cannot happen by themselves. So we need to provide funding for them to take place. And here, actors can receive support in their actions to prevent food waste through EU financing instruments, such as, for example, the Horizon Europe program, or grants that we started recently awarding for 2 years now through the Single Market program. And this is one of the projects, because we know the consumer food waste is a hotspot. So is as part of a collaboration with the European Parliament. We have received funding, and together with the Joint Research Centre, carried out a project called the European Consumer Food Waste Forum. This was a project that ended this year in July, and with the development of a compendium of tools, best practices, recommendations to prevent consumer food waste. And we really do hope that this will help all stakeholders take further action in this regard. And in order to ensure that these tools don't stay as a report, that no one is going to, read, we have now prolonged the duration of this project, and we're working with colleagues to to translate all these really important recommendations, tools into online toolkit. So by next year, we hope to have a really nice website in place, which is easy to navigate, with also some videos and some online tools that can help stakeholders really choose the right actions for their contexts. And I'll going towards the end of my presentation, just to mention quickly the EU Food Loss and Waste Prevention Hub, where we gather resources. I know the Sisters Project was also contributing, so you're very welcome to share your work. Anyone can share what resources, news. We welcome your contributions in order to share knowledge between ourselves, but also within a wider community of stakeholders active in food waste prevention. And every month you will receive also a newsletter if you subscribe with the latest news. And I'm gonna end with a project that was very, very dear to us, the European Citizens Panel on Food Waste. This was the first citizens panel convened by the European Commission as part of its new participatory toolbox. This panel met over December and February this year, and discussed ways in which citizens considered important to reduce food waste. So we convened around 150 randomly selected European citizens, and you can see here some characteristics. So, for example, a third of the panel were actually young people, to make sure that they are well represented. And the idea was to help us guide future actions on food waste reduction, to guide also member states in their actions to achieve future targets to reduce food waste. So the citizens came up with 23 recommendations, and we are considering them in our work, in our overall work program. And we hope that also member states will continue to take inspiration from them. So in order to make sure that this happens, we will have a joint meeting between EU citizens and the members of the platform. This takes place on the 7th of November, and we welcome all of you to tune in and to watch this event online. And the aim here is just to ensure that all players are aware of citizens' ideas and what they consider to be priorities. Also, we want to further inform citizens how today we are tackling food waste across the EU, but also how the aim is also to further exchange views on how we can collectively accelerate our progress. And without further ado, this is just some ways in which we can keep in touch. And I'm happy to share any other links or info you consider useful for you. So thank you very much, and I hope you found this interesting. I'm looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you very much, really. Now I will, so for the questions and answers, we will wait after the second presentation that will be handled by myself and my colleague Antoine. Well, he will introduce himself, but he's part of the Zero W project. So we will speak on the behalf of the two projects, Sisters and Zero Waste. Just a second, sorry, I will just make sure that you see our presentations. So I think okay. Well, Antonio, I don't know if you see if you can share the screen.
Yes, 1 second.
Okay. Yeah, we can see the presentation. Yes. Well, Antoine, I'll leave you start.
Okay, thank you, Federica. Thank you, everyone. And hello, good morning. It's a very important day for food waste today because some of you may be aware this was the first conversation about the Commission proposal of a revision of the Waste Framework Directive in the ENVI committee this morning in the European Parliament. Some really interesting takes from MEPs in conversations with the Commission's DG Santé and DG ENVI. But we're not here to talk about that today. First of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Cristina Lisecci for the introduction and this great entry into the topic. Today, the Sisters Project and the Zero Project are jointly presenting some policy feedback on the food waste reduction targets that have been presented by the Commission in July of this year. There would be plenty to talk about concerning the other initiatives, the date marking initiative, which we are still eagerly awaiting. Also the framework for sustainable food systems, which would be a great opportunity to mainstream sustainability and food waste prevention in all EU policies. But at the moment, the targets are the hot topic, so we'd like to have a word on these. Can I ask you, Antonio, to please go to the next slide? I'll go briefly on this one because the introduction was quite greatly made by Christina just a while ago. The reason why our projects are funded and working is because there is an EU Green Deal based upon the Sustainable Development Goals. In particular, Sustainable Development Goals 12.3, which states that by 2030, all signatories of the SDGs should halve per capita global food waste at retail and consumer levels and reduce food losses along production and supply chains, including post-harvest losses. With this sustainable development goal, the EU, in its Green Deal and Farm to Fork strategy, aimed to indeed simplify waste management for citizens and ensure cleaner secondary materials for businesses. These strategies, these communications were followed by actions. And the one we're focusing on today is the introduction of legally binding food waste reduction targets. Antonio, you can go to the next slide. This graph was already showed by Christina before. It's the latest data from Eurostat, which were published in September 2023. They show some very interesting figures. First of all, we see that most food waste occurs at household level, with some also significant share in manufacturing, restaurants, food services, and also some food waste being occurring at primary production, retail, and other distribution of foods. Before we delve deeply into this topic, would like to really take a look at the history of the Waste Framework Directive, which was last revised in May 2018. And upon this last revision, the Commission requested through the Waste Framework Directive, and all co-legislator approved, that there should be mandatory food waste measurements, and the first reporting of those occurred in 2020, which were reported in 2022. So in 2022, we got the first ever mandatory reporting of food waste data across sectors, which was a big step forward to allow these targets and food waste policies to come to life. The next slide, please. But with that being said, we would like to take maybe the role of a critical friend towards what was already inside the Waste Framework Directive, and look at what is missing. For example, we saw that the levels of food waste occurring at primary production were quite low in the figure in the last slides. But it has been estimated by some experts that these numbers may be underestimated. And the reason is that, first of all, the definition of food loss and food waste has created some debates among stakeholders, and it's not always understood in the same way. And at the same time, once we're talking about food waste occurring at primary production level, we are often forgetting that food losses can also be understood. And as a matter of fact, Champions 12.3, which is a coalition of global leaders, NGOs, stakeholders across the globe, have come up with an interpretation of what the SDG says about food losses, and you can see that on the screen on the right-hand side. They clearly say that in order to reach its ambition, the UN and all signatories of the SDGs must also understand food losses with this food losses reduction with the same level of ambition as what was put for the rest of food waste, which is halving this food loss production. It's impossible to be halving food losses if we don't put a reduction target. That's also what Champions 12.3 argues. And this is exactly what is missing at the moment from the current Waste Framework Directive and its implementing acts. It's a mandatory measurement for food waste and food losses that happen at primary production stage. Next slide, please. Going forward to the current revision, we already had a glimpse at the public consultation process and the four options through the presentation of Mrs. Lisecci. The new proposal made by the Commission has made step forwards by proposing legally binding targets, which we really appreciate. We also appreciate the complexity it has been for the Commission to deal with all these inputs and feedbacks from all stakeholders across the food supply chain, and to run the magnet tool. I'd like to make a small side note to say that the Zero project is currently working on an alternative economic model that could inform the magnet model and provide more figures in order to get into the complexities of managing and handling food waste across the food supply chain from farm to fork, taking into consideration cascading effects. So this is not finalized yet, but once it will, we'll make sure to communicate that to the Commission and all stakeholders. And whilst we acknowledge the complexity of this exercise made by the Commission, we would like also to raise some questions about the level of ambition that was applied by the Commission, but when selecting option 2, present on the right-hand side of the screen. I'll let my colleague Federica talk about that a while later. Now, and just my presentation by supporting the many political groups in the European Parliament who had a say about the introduction of the mandatory targets and supported them this morning, whilst also supporting the 50% reduction target across the whole supply chain. Thank you very much, and I'd be really enjoying discussing this with you after the presentation of Federica.
Yeah, thank you, Antoine. Antonio, you can move to the next. Thank you already. Yeah, I would just like to wrap up a bit what Antoine said before. So we basically, as Sisters and Zero, we reacted to we decided to comment on the Commission proposal, and we both agreed that the setting up of mandatory targets is a great step forward. So we really welcome this new updated measure or proposal, but we have to make clear that we were a bit saddened to see that the Article 9.1 G was erased, and this was an article that, well, is an article that is part of the Waste Framework Directive of 2019, and actually it's more in line with the UN SDGs, so the goal of reducing by 50% the global food waste per capita, and so that would be also what we would like to see, and not only, and I'm echoing here the words of Christina, it's not that all the harm, all the burden should be put on consumers' shoulders, but also, well, it should be spread along the production and supply value chain. So yeah, just to consider the value chain, the food value chain as a whole, because it's interactive at each level. And once again, like projects like Sisters or Zero are here working to achieve and to meet the objectives of the Farm to Fork and the Green Deal. And so therefore, we need to set more ambitious targets at all levels. Next slide, please. And what we've seen in the Commission Inception Impact Assessment is that targets bearing a higher level of ambition could perform better in reducing food waste quantities, and also actually at like the impact on climate change would be better. However, since the third option, which was, in our opinion, the most ambitious one, does not consider setting a 50% reduction target beyond the consumption and retail stages. The burden here of change is set mostly on consumers, on household level, and the share of contributions to food waste reduction appears a bit lower in these impact assessments. And therefore, next slide, please. To be able to contribute and ensure to be on track towards the attainment of the Sustainable Development Goals, we would ask the EU to set targets aimed at halving the food waste by 2030, as mentioned both in the SDG 12.3 and the Green Deal and Farm to Fork, so that these ambitions and commitments will ensure that the all food value chain actors could bear and would bear the responsibility of the change in towards a more sustainable food system. And on these, next slide, I would like to end our presentation and to mention that, here you find both websites of the two projects, so that you can explore more what our proposal is, what our strategies are, and so that you can learn more about our projects. And you can feel free to reach out to us whenever. So if you need any clarification, or you have any specific requests for us, and I would actually leave the floor open for discussion, so that we can have an interactive first Q&A session on this first panel about the EU policy updates. And I thank you already for joining until here. And I leave the floor really open for discussion, for questions and answers. I would just like you to ask. I would just like you to be clear on the person you address your question to. So either you write it in the chat, like for Federica, and then you write your question, or you can just take the floor and address your question to each of us. And I see that there were already 2 questions asked in the chat. So the first one is, I think, to the Commission. Is there, or will there be an evaluation on the validity and quality of the data submitted by member states, which will be published? And it was asked by Tanya, and then the same person asked whether the Commission aims to develop a common methodological framework on how to measure food loss at farm level. I don't know, Tanya, if you would like to take the floor and add something here, or if Christina, you would like to reply already.
I can definitely give some answers to those. On the reporting from member states, there is an agreed reporting format that the directorate DG Santé has developed together with Eurostat, which lays down the minimum quality criteria for the data that should be reported by national authorities. So there is a standard there. And then Eurostat has their own validation process, where unfortunately there's no audit foreseen on the side of Eurostat, in terms of publishing how this validation process goes, or what exactly in details the quality of the data received. But Eurostat has this standard validation process where they make sure that the data is acceptable from a quality perspective, and it complies also with the reporting standards set in the implementing decision adopted in 2019. So in principle, colleagues from Eurostat trust that the declaration of the country and checks that the information is sufficiently detailed, the described methodologies respecting the methodological format of the legislation. And on the second question, we have, at the moment, we are looking into food losses. We have started sharing information on this, discussing actively also within the EU platform on food losses and food waste. One presentation that pops to my mind from last week, where we had the meeting of the food loss and waste monitoring subgroup, is the one from Sweden, where they looked at food losses pre-slaughter, which was very interesting to look at the different categories and the losses that occur at this stage. So we are actively exchanging with stakeholders, trying to gather information on this, because, as you know, food losses, according to the legislation, the EU legislation, they are not regarded as waste. So in the lack of a legal definition for food losses, it is very difficult to develop a methodology and to quantify what they are. So what we need is really studies and to gather data by measuring. And this is already happening across the EU. But also in terms of research, we are funding, the Horizon Europe program. Through the Horizon Europe program, there is an ongoing project called FOLU, which is very relevant for this case, because it aims to deliver a robust methodology to quantify food losses at the primary production stage. So looking at agriculture, aquaculture, and fisheries. And it focuses on food losses that occur from the point that products are ready to harvest until they are harvested. So we know this methodological framework by FOLU should be available by the end of this year. And of course, as soon as we will have further information on this, we'll make sure to disseminate this with all member states and with platform members and all relevant stakeholders. And we're in the process of gathering data to understand, what the situation is on the ground.
Okay, thank you very much. I also actually had a question on the methodological framework, so it was already been addressed. So yeah, and I see we are a little bit behind on our schedule. So probably we will skip the coffee break, but yeah. If there's no other question, I would suggest moving already to the next panel. Okay. Well, yes, then I will introduce the next panel that is mostly focusing on the logistic stage of the food value chain and what the best practices are to tackle food waste. And in particular, we will hear from the Sisters Project and the Food Trust Project with their representatives. And so I will just already leave the floor to the coordinator of the Sisters Project, Carolina, who will describe a bit for us what the innovations and the technologies are that the Sisters partners are working on at the moment. So, Carolina, I will make you co-host again.
Thank you.
Voilà. You should be able to share your screen now.
Let's see. I can share it now. Let me know if you can see my screen. Yes.
Not yet.
I don't see it yet. No.
No.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. You are not seeing it.
No.
No, not yet.
If you want, I have your presentation.
No. Don't worry. I can.
Okay.
I can try again.
Yeah.
Maybe it's this one. I have tried to share the screen, but maybe it's not.
Okay, it's loading.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I should
We see it
change
now,
it.
but it's not in full
Okay.
screen.
No.
Apologies for the
No worries.
missing time with technical problem. Let's see if you can see now. It's okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thank you again. And apologies for this. My presentation is about the work that we have been doing at Sisters, which is a project funded by the European Union under the Horizon 2020 Green Deal program. And the presentation is about the work that we have been done this month about optimizing logistics and minimizing food loss and waste. And the next slide, we can see a short overview of the rationale of the project and the actions that we are doing. As most of you know, the 1/3 of the food produced in the world is being wasted. So this has a huge cost of environmental, economic, and social impact. And only in Europe, we generate around 89 million tons of food loss and waste with a high cost estimated. And at the logistic and distribution, losses are estimated at 5.1% according to data from the European Union. It may seem a low percentage compared to other points of the value chain, but it comes to 6.6 million tons per year. So at Sisters, we are approaching the food losses and waste as in a holistic way. And we have focused on 5 points of this food value chain. And one of them is logistics. We have seen what are the causes of the losses in logistics and distribution. We can see here in this slide some of them. Firstly, when the food is transported, this involves introduce a gap between various stages of the supply chains from production to the final consumption. And during this interval of time, we can have different causes that can make that perishable food products such as fruits and vegetables, for instance, can be damaged or lost due to excessive heat of different variations in temperature, or too much cold, contaminations, or shock during these transports. Also, previous to this food transportation, it's important to have a good logistics. So the handling and packaging may be important also to avoid losses during the transport. And in the transportation, we need efficient physical infrastructure that can prevent also food losses. After this transportation, we need also proper storage and inventory management to avoid this unsold food that can be produced because the food that is stored too much time can be not in good conditions. So if we see which is the most affected food, we can see that the food group that suffer most during this phase are fruits and vegetables, due to the condition that are more quickly perishable and fragile. So in many cases, these foods are packed, but poorly packed or not packed at all. So when they are transported in open trucks or without any refrigeration, and they are the most products that can be converted into food loss. Food waste. In this way, also apart from this packaging, they can be, when they are mechanically damaged, they suffer they are more vulnerable to, for instance, microbial deterioration. So how we can avoid these losses? So we can work on improving the infrastructure for transporting this food production. We can also review the packaging and storage in the previous phase in a way that we can avoid losses during the transport. We can try also to adjust the production in the to the demand in the final trade, although this can be difficult in some cases due to the externalities such as the weather. So this can be most difficult. And last but not least, we can work on the education and awareness in avoiding this food waste, because it's essential that all the people in the food value chain all the people in the food value chain is responsible with their actions, and this should be aimed at reducing this food waste. So I would like now to present the problem at which Sister is working. In Sisters, as I mentioned, we focus on 5 different states, and the problem that we have focused on this logistic stage is the inefficiencies when handling and transporting food. Food, as I mentioned, can be transported either packed or unpacked in bulk, such as some fruits and vegetables. As you can see in these pictures, usually the food is transported in cardboard or plastic crates. You can see in the pictures these crates may have different measurements, and depending on the producer they select, and the product they select the ones that better fits with the products, and are stuck at different levels, wrapped up with plastic films, and these crates are placed in a wooden pallet and transported to distribution centers where these foods are stored and until they are moved to the shops. So what we can see is that these, as I mentioned, they are poorly packed or not packed at all in bulk, and transport in this pallet. So what can we do to enhance or monitor these transportations? Well, at Sister, we have work at the first stage in defining a container for transportation that is smart and reusable. We have first focus on the basic necessities, such as guarantee the tightness of the assembly, not incursion of dust, dirt, protect the merchandise stored inside, guarantee that can be easily transport and handle with not so many difference from the current way that food is being transported. We wanted also to be a way that can be foldable or stackable in a way that in the transportation it's easy, and as I mentioned, not very different to the current way in which products are transported. And these containers should be stable under loads and have the maximum transport weight with the minimum possible weight, because these containers should be returned to the place where they started the transport, and also promote air circulation inside the container. What we have also been working on at Sisters is the incorporation of new sensors that measure temperature, humidity, CO2, and O2, which are important parameters to measure the food quality. So what we have been doing in the first place is working in the pool box. We have called it like this, to transport fruits and vegetables in bulk. So our partner Rebus Labs have designed a communication a sensor kit that you can see on the left with two sensors at the moment, one for temperature and humidity. And we are currently working on the CO2 and O2 sensor and the communication to the cloud. So we have started with some lab trials with apples at the laboratory, and then we continued with a real transport test between Spain and Italy with mushrooms and peppers. And in the picture above, you can see the measurements that were captured through one of the transportations made. So in this way, we can measure temperature, humidity of the transport, and that allows us to react if we can see that the conditions are not okay. Some of the results, as we have been working on the quality of the final products, we can see that the Woolbox has a better performance in preserving overall quality, probably by reducing the hydration of the products. You can see some pictures here of the peppers on the conventional way of transport and with our containers. We can see, because we have been also working on a passive modified atmosphere, that these effects are limited, but also because when we need to obtain products inside the container, we have to open it. So these effects are influenced by this fact. But we can see that compared with the humidity, retention, and temperature, these effects are more limited. And we also are working on the sensor kit improvements needed for lasting of more time of work in the batteries, because we need to cover a few days of transport, and we want to enhance this way of work. And so this brings me to the end of my presentation. There are some conclusions of the work done, that it's essential to have efficient management of the logistics and distribution of products in right conditions to avoid these losses at this stage. That temperature is extremely important in this phase. We have observed through these temperature measurements in the transportation test that inside the trucks the temperature can be higher than expected, and this influence this is a high influence in the quality of the food transport and also to the shelf life of the product. So if the shelf life is reduced, we obtain more food waste at the end. Monitoring of this temperature and humidity can help improving the transport conditions, and but further improvements on the, as I mentioned, on the sensor kit can be obtained. So we are working on it to cover all the total duration of the transport, and that finally that with the ball box can help increasing the quality of some fresh products, such as peppers or apples, as we have observed in the quality test. So I hope you have enjoyed these results, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Carolina. I was informed of the development, so nothing new to me, but very new for all of us, all of the other attendees, and I hope there will be questioning and conversations after the next two presentations. And I will not lose time, and I will change project, but not topic. So I will leave the floor to Annette, who's representing not only the Horkram food service. I'm sorry for my pronunciation. It's a language that I don't speak. And also the Food Rus project today. So Annette, I will leave the floor to you, so you can tell us more about what your best practices are to tackle food waste at logistics stage.
Thank you. I'll share my screen if I can. Yeah, you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yes, you can see my presentation. First of all, thank you very much to Federica for inviting me as a panelist here at the Sisters annual webinar. I'm happy to be here, and I'm also very pleased to hear the other presentations here. It's very interesting. My name is Annette Batsberg, and I'm a bid manager at Horkram. And I'm also responsible for food waste initiatives at Horkram. Horkram Food Service has been part of the Food Us project for the past 3 years. We are in this project together with one of our customers, Jespers Torvekøkken. Jespers Torvekøkken is a big canteen operator, and the University of Copenhagen in the Danish pilot. The Food Us project is a project with 3 universities. We have, besides the Copenhagen University, we have Deusto in Bilbao and the Agro University in Bratislava, Slovakia, and a lot of other partners. So if I can continue my, if I can scroll down here, it does not seem to work.
I think you need the role of co-presenter.
No, I should be able to do it myself.
You have it, but
yeah, this. I have divided my presentation in 3 sections. To begin with, I'll give you a short presentation of Hørkamp Food Services to give you an idea of the company. And then I'll briefly tell you about the public tenders. I'm a bid manager, and this is where my work field is, and this is where we see the challenges with the food waste. And then I'll tell you about the food waste initiatives at Hørkamp. Hørkamp Food Services is one of the 3 biggest wholesaler companies in Denmark in the food service market. We employ 1,100 employees in Denmark. We serve our customers with 290 trucks. We have a product portfolio with 32,000 unique item numbers. In total, we have 92,000 square meters storage. We have meat slicing facilities, and we also have our own fish production. Our annual turnover in 2022 was 4.3 billion Danish kroner. That's just the main figures of our company. We are in the value chain. We are wholesaler. We are buying products from both the industry and the primary producers, and we are selling our products to both the private sector of the food service market and the public sector of the food service market. I'll get deeper into this. And the public kitchens, they are producing the out-of-home meals. So we do not sell our products to the retail sector, so it's to professionals. We have had quite a good development over the years, with just a few bumps on the road with the pandemic in 2021, and then in 2022 we had this economic crisis, but it's been a stable growth again, and we are now among we are number 150 of 1,000 companies, the biggest companies in Denmark. We operate from 2 centers in Denmark. We have one in Aarhus and one here in Sorø, where I'm located. So we supply customers all over Denmark. We have 1,000 suppliers and deliver to approximately 8,000 customers on a daily basis. When we look at our logistics systems, because in fact we are is a logistics company. We buy all these products from a lot of different suppliers, and then we gather all these products and deliver all the various product categories to our customers. And these categories, they vary from fresh fruit, meat, fish, to also include non-food items such as plates and glasses and whatever you need in your public kitchen to cook the food and to serve it on the plates. So what we are really good at is efficient and also now green transportation. Out of our 290 trucks, 30 of them are now hybrid trucks, and we have started investing in fully electric vehicles also, because now we see that they are also suitable for food transportation. We have 3 different temperature zones on all our trucks. We have minus 18 degrees for the frozen products. We have 5 degrees for all the basic products that do not need freezing or cooling. And then we have a temperature zone of below 2 degrees for meat and fish that require lower temperatures and not frozen. At both our centers, we also have modern facilities for storing the products so that we avoid food waste because of storage problems. We, for example, have 3 different temperature zones for fruit and vegetable, because studies have shown us that some fruit and vegetable require different temperatures than others to keep fresh. So this is something that we have been working quite a lot with, and which has improved our quality on that product category considerably. So an efficient and green transportation system. And this we have also described in the Food Hours project as a best practice, because we have a cold chain management system that works. We are IFS certified, which means that we have to have control of every single operation in our storage facilities and in our transportation system. When we look at our customers, 41% of our customers are found within the public sector. 36% is in the gastronomy sector, and that's cafes, restaurants, and hotels. And then we have 70% of our turnover within the private canteen sector, and that could be big canteen operators, chains of canteens operated by private companies. And we deliver to all kinds of professional kitchens, from hospital kitchens to Michelin restaurants. And that also means that we have a huge quality variety in our product portfolio. There are different requirements. Briefly about public tenders, because dealing with public tenders also means looking into systems and structures that affects food waste and food loss in the chain. There's some legislation, some claims that the public procurers, they have to obey, they have to observe. There are things in the public tenders that they cannot do, and there's something that they must do. And often a public tender is based on the local politics of the individual municipality. So they have some ideas how to carry out the politics in the municipality, then that can affect how they design their tender, and which could also have an impact on food loss and waste. I'll come into this later in my presentation. And then they also have to observe the general health issues, which could be laid down by legislation, but also in the form of recommendation from the Danish government. For example, we have a recommendation that that we should eat 100 grams of legumes per day. And when this is a national recommendation, then we see that our customers, they swap from one kind of food products to another, or there is more focus on one product group in respect to another. Also, we see customer claims in the public tenders for example, how much shelf life should be on the products when we deliver them. There can be claims for a more sustainable transportation, and maybe they want us to have a plan for how to reduce food waste in Hørsholm, and of course also the basis for the entire tender is economy. What we see most as how they want to select their new supplier is the cheapest and the lowest pricing of the offer. So a lot of claims and things to observe, and all of them can point at increasing food waste. So how do we deal with this? Because we are in the middle of the chain and we see these claims, and we look at how much we waste compared to how much the entire industry wastes. So I have some quick numbers here. In Denmark, the household waste is 247,000 tons. In the retail sector, 96,000 tons. In the food industry, 385,000 tons. And then we have some unreported numbers, 128,000 tons in the HoReCa sector, 42,000 tons in the primary production, 44,000 tons. And in Hørsholm, we have approximately 1,400 tons per year, and that's 1% of our total purchase volume. And when I started looking at this, I thought, well, this is really a lot, and what can we do about it? And how can we help both our suppliers and also our customers reducing food waste? What I found out at my first study was that our largest waste categories, as Carolina also mentioned, we find it within fresh fruit and vegetable, and we also find it within the dairy product group. And for the fresh fruit and vegetable, we understand it. It's the quality, and it's the transport, and it's the storage problems that you can see with the fresh fruit and vegetable, and we can do something about that. But for the dairy products, it's a different problem. The customers, they claim a certain number of days on the shelf life when we deliver the products to them, and it's often very narrow what's left for us to handle the products in the storage. We can take, for example, drinking milk, which is a big category in Denmark. The Danes tend to drink a lot of fresh milk, and they want it as fresh as possible. So we need to deliver the fresh milk with 7 or 8 days left of the shelf life. And that's for a product that has 10 days from the dairy company. So we only have 1 or 2 days to get the milk through our storage facilities before we deliver it to the customers. That's a very close window, and if the shelf life falls short of 7 days, then the customers will not receive the milk. So we have milk in the storage that still has 6 or 7 days left, and we have to throw it out. That's a huge problem. We also have other issues that creates food waste here, and that's the unpredictability of how much the customers will order. They typically buy their products through our web shop, and then they have some, most customers, they have some predefined delivery days. And maybe they have 2 or 3 delivery days during the week. And then they can order their products until, for example, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we have to deliver the next morning. We cannot predict how many orders for a certain product that we will receive. Not exactly. We can make estimates, but we never have the exact figures. So we have to guess. I've never been in a company before where guesswork is allowed to such an extent, and I kind of find this. How did we get there where it's practice just to be allowed to place an order very late and then still claim that you must deliver exactly the amount that you buy and at the exact time that you wish. But this has become the practice of public procurement in Denmark, and I have been trying to make lobbyism to change this, but I think it needs scientific evidence, and that's what we are working on in another project where we look at this and to see what is the result of these claims. But my graphs here shows that, for example, during the pandemic, our total purchase calculated on the volume that we purchased, it dropped during the pandemic because a lot of customers closed down. And we didn't know when they closed down because this was something that happened just like this. And then our food waste increased. So this is the exact reflection of what happened there, where you cannot predict the purchase that you have to make and what is demanded by the customers. So after the pandemic, our turnover increased, and we adopted some new forecasting systems here in Hørkram. And now we can see that the curves are going in the right way. Our total purchase is increasing and our food waste is decreasing. So that's the way it should be, where we can better predict how much we should buy to meet the customers' demand.
And sorry to interrupt you, but I've just asked you to wrap up.
Yes, this is my
okay,
last.
Thank you.
This is my last slide, and this is just to sum up what are we doing apart from looking at these things that I have presented so far. We reduce food waste during our annual fairs. We make donations. We have some agreements with the donees, and We are also reporting on our food waste in the voluntary organization Denmark Against Food Waste, where we have committed to reduce our food waste by 50% before the end of 2030. And I'm very optimistic because so far, based on our set baseline, we have reduced already by 31% by these initiatives that we have implemented in the Food Hours project. What we have done is we have implemented a food waste web shop in our offer to our customers, where we reduce by 65% 65 tons per year. We have established 2 food waste shops for the employees. A Keep It Simple project where the employees can buy food waste products in the storage. And we are also looking at some upcycling projects in the Food Hours project. And besides this, we are working in another research project where we look at the entire value chain, where we work with the customers to change their systems and structures. So this is all from me, and if you receive my presentation, it's all summed up in this overview from a previous presentation that I have done. So thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and thank you for asking me to give this presentation.
Thank you, Annette. And it's very nice what you've described, and also in line with, well, with the objectives of Sisters for sure, but also with some of the technologies and the stress, the importance on of scientific data and research. I find it quite important here. I will just quickly give the floor to Amélie from Naturplast, another partner of the Sisters project. And just to, well, just to explain to you briefly, so Amélie will talk more about the processing phase of the food value chain. So it's not because we decided just to quickly and randomly change topic, but it's because apart from the webinars and other activity that we organize in the framework of the Work Package 7 of the Sisters project, is also organizing working group meetings every 3 months. So Amélie's presentation will actually be a sort of link between the logistics stage and the processing stage that we will discuss during the next 3-monthly working group meeting. So I will leave the floor to Amélie. You should be able to share your screen, so feel free to do so, and thank you and welcome.
Yeah, hi, thank you for the introduction. So I will share my screen. Okay. So normally it should be working.
Yes, it is.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm Amélie Ringuet. I'm a project manager at Naturplast. So Naturplast, it's a French company located in Normandy. We have been working on bio-based and biodegradable plastic for almost 17 years now. We are a small team of 14 people. At first, we were focusing on the distribution of raw materials, but then in 2010, we have developed the R&D center in order to improve and optimize the property of the bioplastics. So just small information about our company is that we have 4 main areas of expertise. First is the distribution part, where we can have access to almost all of the bioplastics, the raw materials that are already produced in the world today, and we are also distributed compounds. We have a part dedicated to service, when we can do training, technico-economic study, and also project engineering. Then we have our R&D center, when we can do customized formulation, optimization of property of raw materials in order to meet the requirements of our clients. And we have also a part where we can produce our own compounds. The last part is dedicated to the byproducts. It's the most recent one. We have equipment of grinding, micronizing, sieving, in order to be able to incorporate different kinds of byproducts, which can be fibers, minerals, very diverse, and we will try to incorporate them in our plastic matrix. So we are part of the sister project. We are involved in the processing stage, where we are working on the packaging solution. So we are one of the partners who try to find an optimization for bio-based packaging, but also packaging that can be home compostable. So a solution compared to the plastic that we have today, and then can be remaining in the environment. For that, we are providing materials such as PLA, which is a bio-based and biodegradable polymers, but also some additives in order to be able to improve the property of the PLA. And in the next couple of months, we will be doing the scaling up of those formulation that have been the most successful at lab scale, in order to provide material to the other partners so they can produce final prototypes packaging. I wanted to come back to some definition of bioplastic, because today a lot of things are said about bioplastic, and it's important to have the right definition in order to really understand those materials that are still quite new. So a bioplastic, it's bio-based and or a biodegradable polymers. So bio-based and biodegradable at very different notions. Let's say the bio-based is the origin of the plastic, and the biodegradation will be its end of life. Plastic can be bio-based and biodegradable. We have some PLA, PHA, which are the most known polymers today, but a plastic can be fossil-based and also biodegradable. We have, for example, PBAT, which is a biopolyester. And finally, we can have bio-based plastic, but they cannot be biodegradable. We have the bio-based polyethylene, bio-based polypropylene. So let's say three categories of bioplastics. So bio-based today, there is a definition that is defined by a standard. And it means that part of the origin of the material comes from vegetal biomass. It can be either a small amount or totally all the material comes from biomass. And often this biomass is dividing into 3 generations, depending if it came from food, from non-food, or if it's cultivable out of the ground. The other important definition is regarding the biodegradation. So a material is biodegradable if it can be degraded through the action of microorganisms. And it would lead to water, CO2, Sometimes it can lead to methane and eventually byproducts. But all of these components have to be non-toxic for the environment. And another thing that we are talking often is composting. So composting does not mean biodegradable. A material that is biodegradable is not necessarily compostable, because compostable is a process where the fermentable matter is converted into compost. It will need to have specific conditions, for example, humidity, temperature, different specific microorganisms. That's why when we talk about biodegradation, we do not speak necessarily about composting. And composting, there are two types of composting that we must talk about. In the industrial composting, that it's performed in dedicated installation with specific and very well-controlled condition. For example, the temperature is a bit high, around 60 and 70 degrees. And we have the home composting that we are, each individual can make at his home, where the conditions are not very controlled and that more difficult for material to be biodegradable in this condition. Some data about the environmental impact of the bioplastic production. So of course there is we can talk about a lot of different impact. I will just focus on two. So first, the land use, because today we often heard that the bio-based polymers, the biomass that is used is in competition with the food culture and will create some issue with our food consumption. But if we look at this picture, we'll see that most of the agricultural area is for the pastures, and in the arable land, most is for the food and feed. The bioplastic, it's only a very small percentage, around 0.02%. So even if this biomass dedicated to bioplastic will double or even triple, it would still be a very small percentage that will not be in competition with food and feed. And today, we are also working to develop new type of biomass, so the third generation, which is cultivated out of the ground. So in order to be sure that we never comes in a competition with food. Another impact is the greenhouse gas emission. So for example, the CO2. In this graph, it represents the saving of a greenhouse gas emission when bio-based polymers are produced. So the bars that we have in orange for PLA and green for PHA, they are the average saving of the gas emissions. And if we look at the bio-based production compared to the conventional polymer production, we see that almost every time we have a positive impact. So that means that when we produce bio-based polymers compared to conventional polymers, we are saving green gas emissions. So it's a positive environmental impact. So now it was about the bioplastic production. Now for the end of life of the bioplastics, we can consider two cases. So first, we have the bio-based polymers that have the same structures as the conventional one. For example, the bio-PET, bio-polyethylene, as they have the same structure, they can be at the same end of life as those conventional polymers. So they can be integrated in the same existing stream in order to be recycled. Because the biodegradation and the end of life of the polymer is an intrinsic properties linked to the chemical structure of the materials. So for those materials, it's easy, they can have the same end of life as the conventional ones. For the bio-based polymers with new structures, which are often biodegradable, the feasibility has to be assessed case by case, because depending on the way they can biodegrade, we can have let's say, a unique solution for the end of life. And today it's a bit complicated because there are no existing stream for recycle or for biodegradation in France. But it's also the same in Europe. It's not homogeneous. So for those biodegradable eco-compostable polymers, as I say, there's no recovery in France today. They are not really well taken care of. But for example, in Italy, the collect for those compostable plastic is done with the food waste. It has been done for several years now with no issues. So I will just end my presentation with, let's say, the difficulties and needs that we can have in the bioplastic sectors, and especially for packaging, is that today there is no clear legislation at the European scale, which make it very difficult to find the right solution, the right way to the end of life for the bioplastic, and especially for the biodegradable plastics. And today the current legislation and the legislation that the European Union is working on tends to favor the recycling of materials and not the biodegradation of materials, which means that we are working with new materials that could be a solution to plastic waste in for some dedicated specific application. But today it's complicated because there are no right stream for those materials. That's why I think we need a clear position of the European Union to make sure what we can do with those materials, what is possible. And for example, a PLA that could be used for plastic packaging, it could be very interesting to be able to recycle this material, because some studies have shown that it's really, let's say, easy to recycle it with. So if we have dedicated stream, you can be able to recycle a new polymer. Thank you for your attention, and do not hesitate if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Amélie. And thank you to Carolina and Annette for your presentations that are very intertwined and very well connected. I would also like to just spend a few words to thank Mihai Pera, who's the project officer of the Sisters Project. He's here in the among the attendees. So feel free to intervene if you want, and otherwise I will just ask to Annette to reply to the question that was asked in the chat. I don't know if you prefer doing it by message or shortly, briefly in person, via voice, because we only have 8 minutes, and so I'm pretty afraid that we will be a bit behind on schedule. Well, we already are, so I would actually leave the floor to Ines, and eventually at the end of her presentation, which is part of the last panel. So just a zoom in on the work of the Green Deal Support Office. Ines, thank you very much for being here, and the floor is yours. You should be able to share your screen, and yeah.
Thank you so much. Let me try to share it. Can you see it?
Yes,
presentation. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'll be brief so we can try to end up on time. Thank you once again for this invitation to show the work we've been developing in the Green Deal Project Support Office. My name is Inês Pacheco, and together with Roxana Vilko, we are facilitators of the Food Working Group. Just to give you a bit of context for those of you who are not familiar with the Green Deal Project Support Office, this is operated for the Directorate General for Research and Innovation from the European Commission. And the mission is to facilitate the coordination between the projects funded under the Horizon 2020 Green Deal call and maximize their positive impact in the long term. So the timeline that the GDSO will operate is until November 2026. And our key activities is to promote this effective collaboration, putting the projects together to discuss, to exchange knowledge, to develop synergies, and to help boost their communication efforts and results. So right now we are supporting 73 Green Deal Call projects, and easy to organize them in working groups according to their topics. Right now we have 5 working groups, and I'll be talking about the food one, where we have these 9 super proactive projects focusing on reshaping the food sector to better support the green transition. So you can meet here the 9 projects. I've seen some of you here in the audience from Zero Waste, From Enough, Sisters, of course, organizing, but we also have Agro to Circular, Clean Farms, Eco-Efficient, Neo-Giant, and School Food for Change. So how do we work and how we work together? There is an action plan that the projects are building. It's a living document where we define priorities, which areas that they want to work together, if it's in policy, events, communication, and we meet twice a year in a working group meetings where we define what are the priorities for each year, which actions they want to develop, putting forward more communication, more actions related with policy recommendations, what's the purpose of these actions, and who they want to reach. So right now I'm going to do a quick update of the achievements of this year. We are almost finishing the year, and we'll meet soon in December to discuss what we have achieved and what we will do next year. So I want to show you some of the articles that were published on our website. We can start with one from Sisters Project on reducing food waste during transportation. Joint articles where all these projects came up together and discuss the EU Farm to Fork strategy and the future of affordability. How can they contribute to this initiative? They also have been doing joint webinars on digital technologies for a sustainable food system. This is all in our website. You can check it and see the key points of the discussion and the main outputs. The success stories, Carolina already also talk a bit of this here today. The highlights, what are the projects, success stories. Together with the Green Deal, we also developed infographic and other communication materials, such as videos. And we are very happy. This is just a small portion of what we have achieved this year, and we hope that next, still in this year, what's next, we will have a joint participation in a conference coming soon, this Food 2030, with the motto Green and Resilient Food Systems, that we're looking forward to exchange views with different stakeholders, from policymakers to other projects. And just to say, stay tuned, follow our website. I will try to share it in the chat here, but I cannot have access right now. In our website, we have all this information about the projects, where you can find their websites, We have a quarterly newsletter. You can subscribe and receive all these articles. You can see the videos, infographics, and also the events that projects organize, not only jointly, but also individual. And to more updates, you can check the DG RTD social media accounts. And something that we are planning to release in the next couple of months, it's a report on the success stories and the challenges that these projects face that could help not only them on their work, but also policymakers to understand what's happening right now. So thank you so much. You can contact us through this email. I will also put it on the chat. And I hope I gave a clear picture.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you, Ines. And also, thank you for being, for wrapping up and making sure that we were finished on time. I saw that on the Q&A box, there was an exchange, so I would invite all of you to have a look at it. In the meantime, I saw that there was a question asked in the chat, and I hope there will be a bit of a interaction apart from this webinar. That is unfortunately at the end, and it was very, very fruitful, I would say. That was my only expectation for today. So it was very well met, thanks to the speakers we had with us today. So I'm very grateful, and I'm very happy for the way it was handled by each of you. Thank you very much. A special thanks also to Andrea from Innovarum, who helped me organize on behalf of the Sisters Project this webinar. And Andrea, if you want to share with us also the next steps when it comes to communication and the dissemination of the materials of this webinar, please feel free to.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for taking part in the Sisters webinar. And we're going to be posting the recording of the webinar in our YouTube channel, also the website and social media. So we will be tagging you and your projects, so you can also help us repost and reshare. And yeah, just thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you, Andrea. If anyone else wants to quickly jump in now, it's the time.
I would prefer to
Yeah.
say 2 words if possible.
Yes,
I don't
please.
know if you can see me. I cannot see myself because I don't have control on the app. Thanks a lot to everybody for this very interesting event from my point of view, and I'm sure that for both projects it was interesting. Thank you for identifying this opportunity to this synergy opportunity with Foodrush. Thank you, Federica and Andrea, for setting up the logistics for this meeting. I will not retain you now. I have some small remarks on the content. Actually, they're not remarks, they're recommendations for the policy briefs, and I will send to both coordinators, to Carolina and to Ainoa, or to Deitze from Foodrush. Again, thanks everybody for contributing to this event, and this is all from my side.
Thank you very much, Mihai. And yeah, just a final clarification on the policy part. So myself and my colleague Antoine will reach out to the other EU-funded project to issue a statement to the EU institutions about what we've presented today. So stay tuned on that. And then next steps will be actually to meet for the next working group meeting, that will happen in January. Yes, November, December, January, yes. So if any of you in the audience is not part of the working group on food waste and losses and would be interested in being added to the thread of conversations, please send an email to me. As I wrote in the chat, we will share the presentations and the addresses of the panelists of today, so that this networking event would not be only for today, but will be useful and fruitful for the future. And once again, and maybe not enough, thanks to each and all of you. And I wish you all a very nice rest of the day and rest of the week. And
I would like to have one final word, because I completely forgot to mention Zero Waste. Now I see the comment in the chat. Thanks a lot, Zero Waste, for contributing to this. Actually, it's the sister project of Sisters. So yeah. Thanks a lot, and please accept my apologies. I thought about these two projects that I mentioned in the context of my portfolio, but of course, Zero Waste has its own place. Apologies. Thanks a lot.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, and have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.